We're going to begin with a story that I didn't get to cover last week. I touched on it. It's about a Democrat dark money group that is funneling money to select influencers to peddle Democratic establishment talking points. This is courtesy of Taylor Lorenz, who wrote this for Wired. Something that I didn't touch on during my summarization of this story last week was the fact that these payments were not allowed to be disclosed by the content creators receiving them. I chose instead to fixate on the inherent conflict of interest in regards to a messaging perspective. Whenever you receive money from somebody, you are expected to parrot talking points or to discuss issues that they want you to, and other issues, and not discuss issues that they don't want you to. This is an issue with independent media receiving money from corporations, or I say quote unquote independent media receiving money from corporations, from donors, because if you receive money from either one of these parties, you are going to talk about the things that they want you to talk about, and again, not the things that they don't want you to talk about. If you are entirely fan funded, or you receive money from advertisers through YouTube but don't have any discussions with those advertisers. I'm looking at people like Kyle Kalinske and Hassan Piker, two very prominent left-wing content creators who have built their audiences and fund their coverage entirely by individual donations and default ads on YouTube. When you have that source of income, you're free to talk about whatever the you want, and more importantly, whatever the audience wants you to talk about. But beyond that, there are no limitations on your speech. You can talk about liberal coded issues. You can talk about the genocide in Gaza. You can have an economically populist agenda and not be suffocated by the party. A dark money group is secretly funding high-profile Democratic influencers. An initiative aimed at boosting Democrats online offers influence up to $8,000 a month to push the party line. All they have to do is keep secret and agree to restrictions on their content. Full disclosure, I am a very tiny content creator. If I was ever approached by the Democratic Party to engage in a partnership like this, I would not. I believe in integrity. I believe in not being limited. I want to maintain full editorial control of my content. I'm not inherently against people receiving money from a particular organization. The issue lies in what organization is it, and are you allowed to disclose the payments, which is a core crux of the argument. In a private group chat in June, dozens of Democratic political influencers discussed whether to take advantage of an enticing opportunity. They were being offered $8,000 a month to take part in a secretive program aimed at bolstering Democratic messaging on the internet. But the contract sent to them from Chorus, the nonprofit arm of a liberal influencer marketing platform, came with some strange strings. Among other issues, it mandated extensive secrecy about disclosing their payments and had restrictions on what sort of political content the creators could produce. This is part of the Democratic Party's agenda in building their platform online and creating a propaganda arm comparable to the Republican Party. They're doing so by doing Republican Party shit. Republican dark moneyed interests fund all of the prominent creators: Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, people like that, Steven Crowder, have long been funded by multimillionaires, billionaires, massive corporations, and they have been funded secretly. The reason why these types of payments are kept secret is to provide the illusion of a grassroots movement. When you have a grassroots movement as opposed to an astroturf movement, the people who support a specific creator seem more genuine. This tends not to be the case in right-wing media, at least from everything I've observed. They more so resonate with what an individual is saying as opposed to the individual themselves, which is why we've seen Ben Shapiro and Steven Crowder have a tremendous fall off, because people don't give a fuck about you. They give a fuck about how racist, transphobic, and xenophobic you may be. Once you begin to deviate from that slightly, your audience flees. In their group chat, Influencers debated the details. Quote, should we send a joint email with all of our email addresses, or are we going to just send things separately and hope they change everything for everyone? Lorenzo, a non-binary creator in Columbus, Ohio, with over 884,000 TikTok followers, asked the group. Some joked about collective bargaining. Quote, any Newsies fans here? Eliza Orlins, a public defender and reality TV star known for her appearances on Survivor, posted in the group, quote, we're a union just by saying so. The influencers in the chat collectively had at least 13 million followers across social platforms. They represented some of the most well-known voices online posting in support of Democrats, and they're key to wherever the party moves next, but ultimately, the group didn't make much progress. Reading through this revised chorus contract, like you win some, you lose some, a reproductive justice influencer named Pari, who posts under the handle @WomenInAmerica, responded later in the thread, quote, I also think there's at least 4 other things that should change, but the vibe I got from their email was that there would be minimal, if any, changes. Lorenzo, Orleans, and Pari did not immediately reply to requests for comment. Quote, I don't feel so strongly about pushing, to be honest. Aaron Parnas, a Gen Z news influencer who has been called the Gen Z Walter Cronkite, has been lauded in legacy media outlets, posted to the chat, quote, they aren't going to modify it anymore. Seems like a take it or leave it. Parnas declined to comment. Quote, I believe we are in stage 5, acceptance. Pari responded. Creators began signing on to the deal. For years, Democrats have struggled to work with influencers. In 2024, President Joe Biden's White House snubbed several prominent content creators after they lightly criticized the administration over its policies on climate change, COVID, Gaza, and the TikTok ban. Content creators who challenged Kamala Harris, including Hassan Piker, a well-known influencer on the left, were similarly unwelcome at campaign events. They kicked Hassan out of the DNC because of how vocally he opposed the genocide in Gaza. While he was on stream, I watched it live. They went to him and said, buddy, you got to get the fuck out of here. You are on the correct side of history, and we as the Democratic Party do not stand for that. The reason why Democrats have such an issue with influencers is because the party fucking sucks, dude. The party stands for nothing. Full disclosure, of all of the content creators that they mentioned, that Taylor Lorenz has mentioned throughout the article, I'm unfamiliar with all of them except for Aaron Parnas. And the only reason I'm familiar with him is because my wife is a fan. However, I don't really see Aaron posting about, I want to pick my words very carefully here. He is very clearly a liberal. Him and I do not land on the same side of the political spectrum. I'm much more to the left of him. I don't inherently have an issue with him. I think that being anti-Trump is fine, and he's very clearly anti-Trump. But I wish that some of these liberal creators talked more. I wish that they talked more about the severity of certain issues like the genocide in Gaza. For example, David Pakman has had no coverage on this issue. For example, the liberal media as a whole will not touch this issue because the Democratic Party walks in lockstep with the Republican Party when it comes to allowing the slaughter of Palestinians to persist. This is a major point of contention online, with folks saying that Kamala Harris would not be as right-wing as Donald Trump on this issue. And yet, every time Kamala Harris talked about the genocide in Gaza, she did not say that she would stop it. She did not say that she would halt all transfer of arms to Israel. Even now, in the aftermath of the election, coming up on 7 months or 8 months now of the Trump presidency, she is radio silent on this issue. That is all we need to know. She may not be as right-wing, as genocidal as Donald Trump, but she has no interest in stopping this genocide. After the Democrats lost in November, they faced a reckoning. It was clear that the party had failed to successfully navigate the new media landscape. While Republicans spent decades building a powerful and robust independent media infrastructure, quote-unquote independent media, by the way, maximizing controversy to drive attention and maintaining tight relationships with creators despite their small disagreements with Donald Trump, the Democrats have largely relied on outdated strategies and traditional media to get their message out. The Democratic Party still listens to these dipshit consultants who want all of these representatives to go on fucking morning talk shows and to do interviews with CNN. And it's basically a giant fuck you to independent media. There is a slight deviation from this amongst the younger representatives who are, and of course, among the progressive wing of the party, who are not opposed at all to collaborating with prominent online creators. But the Democratic Party is still reluctant to prioritize the progressive wing of the party, even though that is by far the most popular portion of the Democratic Party. People like Bernie Sanders, they like AOC. They do not like Pete Buttigieg or Gavin Newsom as much as Bernie Sanders, regardless of what recent polling on Gavin Newsom is. His recent surge in popularity has nothing to do with policy, only to do with his fighting against Donald Trump. Bernie Sanders has consistently been the most popular member of Congress because he continually talks about issues that resonate with people. He continually talks about issues that would prove materially beneficial to 90%, upwards of 95% of Americans. Democrats hope that the secretive Chorus Creator Incubator program, funded by a powerful liberal dark money group called the 1630 Fund, might tip the scale. The program kicked off last month, and the creators involved were told by Chorus that over 90 influencers were set to take part. Creators told Wired that the contract stipulated they'd be kicked out and essentially cut off financially if they even so much as acknowledged that they were a part of the program. Some creators also raised concerns about a slew of restrictive clauses in the contract. This is gross. Not from the creators' point of view, unless, of course, they signed up for it, and we will talk about that a little bit later on. You are not advocating for the appropriate things if you are handing out NDAs to certain creators. You are not a trustworthy organization. Influencers included in communication about the program, and in some cases an onboarding session for those receiving payments from the fund, include Olivia Juliana, the centrist Gen Z influencer who spoke at the 2024 Democratic National Convention; Piretra, a former Playboy executive turned political influencer who hosts a podcast for Occupy Democrats; Barrett Adair, a content creator who runs an American Girl doll themed pro DNC meme account. What? What the fuck? That's an original sentence. Suzanne Lambert, who has called herself a Regina George liberal; Ariel Fedor, an education creator with 1.4 million followers on TikTok; Sonder Jennings, a former TLC reality star and older brother of trans influencer Jazz Jennings; David Pakman, who hosts an independent progressive show on YouTube covering news and politics; Lee McGowan, who goes by the online moniker Politics Girl; and dozens of others. The first two declined to comment. The rest did not respond to requests for comment. I want to track back to David Pakman for a second, because clearly he's the only person who I am familiar with in this slew of liberal content creators. David Pakman posted a video on this after he had been, I guess, outed by Taylor Lorenz. And his audience, there were two conclusions that his audience reached. One, it makes sense as to why his coverage on Gaza has been non-existent. The second was that, okay, David, we're glad that you're talking about this, but you still haven't disclosed whether or not you took this money. There were no mentions of the payout. He didn't explicitly say, I was named in this article, and no, I didn't take any of this money. The contention is, you cannot claim to be independent media if you are getting money behind the scenes from an arm of the Democratic Party. It really is that simple. You are a DNC operative at that point. You are not an independent creator. You are a propaganda arm for the do-nothing Democrat. According to copies of the contract viewed by Wired, the creators signed, the influencers are not allowed to disclose their relationship with Chorus or the 1630 Fund, or functionally that they're being paid at all. This is what fucking bothers me. These influencers do not give a fuck about their audience. They do not give a fuck about their integrity either. I understand that I'm coming off a little harshly in this segment. I don't have personal beef with anybody here. We may disagree on certain issues, but this is an issue that I hold with a lot of reverence. When you discuss politics, there are certain issues that you must discuss. There are certain issues that are moral issues. I'm hesitant to use the word serious issues, so I'll use the word substantive issues. If you refuse to talk about them, you are doing a disservice to your audience. If you're ignorant to them, like if your refusal to talk about them is based out of, oh, I don't like this is not something that I'm allowed to talk about, it is much worse than you not talking about an issue that you are unknowledgeable about. However, if you're a politics creator, I am expecting you to be relatively knowledgeable about the ongoings of American politics. I don't expect any of these people to understand in depth the conflict between Thailand and Cambodia. I didn't even fucking talk about that. Do you know why? Because I'm not an expert in the relations between Thailand and Cambodia. I am rather knowledgeable, however, with American politics and certain foreign policy issues. When there is something that I feel needs to be talked about, I'm going to talk about it. The individuals who receive money from the Democrats are not talking about it out of lack of knowledge. They're not talking about it because they're not allowed to. And that is wrong. That is a disservice to your audience. Dozens of liberal influencers are believed to have been approached by Chorus about the 1630 fund financing opportunity this spring. They were told that Chorus appreciated the work they were doing online and were asked if they'd be interested in being part of the first cohort of a new program that Chorus was running to help expand their reach and impact, creators tell Wired. But following the initial outreach, many creators expressed concerns about some stipulations. According to the copies of the contract viewed by Wired, creators in the program must funnel all bookings with lawmakers and political leaders through Chorus. Creators also have to loop Chorus in on any independently organized engagements with government officials or political leaders. What this means is that if you're, let's pick a different creator. I don't want to come off as picking on anybody. Let's say if you're Suzanne Lambert, if you wanted to interview Zoran Mamdani, you wouldn't be able to do that. This arm of the Democratic Party would not allow you to do that. Why? Because the Democratic Party perceives Zoran Mamdani as a threat. They're very open about that. Whether it's by actual admission of Democratic Party strategists that, oh, he's a threat to capital, therefore a threat to the party, whether that's by lack of endorsements from prominent Democratic Party candidates, whether that be Hakeem Jeffries, who's the most influential Democrat in the House, whether that be Kathy Hochul, who's the goddamn governor of New York. I pre-read this very clearly. Quote, if I want to work with another politician, I have to fully collaborate with them, said one creator who was offered the contract but ultimately declined to take it, pardon me, and asked not to be named. Quote, if I get Zoran and he wants to do an interview with me, I don't want to give that to them. Creators in the program are not allowed to use any funds or resources that they receive as a part of the program to make content that support or opposes any political candidate or campaign without express authorization from Chorus in advance and in writing per the contract. If you were receiving money from this organization, you would not be able to make anti-Kamala Harris content. It's that simple. You would not be able to say what I said in the beginning, where she is reluctant to stop this genocide. You would not be allowed to critique any establishment Democrat. The contracts reviewed by Wired prohibit standard partnership disclosures, declaring that creators will, quote, not publicize their relationships with Chorus or tell others that they're members of the program, quote, without Chorus's prior express consent. A screenshot from a slideshow was shared with Wired following this article's publication by Graham Wilson, a lawyer working with Chorus, that offers several talking points if a member of the cohort wanted to discuss Chorus publicly. They also forbid creators from, quote, disclosing the identity of any funder and give Chorus the ability to force creators to remove or correct content based solely on the organization's discretion if that content was made at a Chorus organized event. If you are a liberal content creator who claims to be independent media and you took this partnership full knowing that you were hiding something from your audience, shame on you. I'm not, again, trying to cause problems with anybody. Ultimately, like, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I'm a small bean in this world of politics. But one thing I've noticed over the years, outside of politicians, as a creator in general, your audience is really your lifeline. If you disrespect your audience, your livelihood is gone. This is very disrespectful to your audience to hide a funder, to hide someone who has funded your content. It's also, you're lying to them. You're claiming to be independent media while getting $8,000 a month from an arm of the Democratic Party. You are not independent media. There are some real great advantages to housing this program in a nonprofit. Wilson said to its creators on a Zoom call reviewed by Wired, quote, "It gives us the ability to raise money from donors. It also, with this structure, it avoids a lot of the public discourse of public disclaimers, paid for, blah, 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 that you see on political ads. We don't need to deal with any of that. Your names aren't showing up like on reports filed with the FEC. This is wrong. No, this guy is a fucking he's a brainlet. His brain is ruined. One of the only good things about campaign finance law is that ads have to be disclosed. God, dude, like Citizen United has done untold damage to this country. With the Democrats being like, oh, Republicans are utilizing Citizen United. We should also utilize Citizen United. The Democrats only behave like Republicans when it's something bad. They don't ever behave like Republicans when it comes to fucking being annoying. For example, when it comes to abusing the the institutional procedures for your benefit, they don't do any of that. Instead, they're like, we're going to utilize the full scope of Citizen United. One of, if not the most disastrous Supreme Court rulings in modern American history. The goal of Chorus, according to a fundraising deck obtained by Wired, quote, is to build new infrastructure to fund independent progressive voices online at scale. Meanwhile, none of these people that they mentioned are progressive, it seems. The pro DNC American Girl doll lady is not progressive if she's posting pro DNC memes. David Pakman is certainly not progressive, or at least progressive enough for me for the sizable audience that he has. More importantly, none of these people are independent. They just either they're ignorant to that or they're fucking stupid. You can't be independent. You can't fund independent creators as a dark money nonprofit. That's contradictory. The creators who joined the incubator are expected to attend regular advocacy trainings and daily messaging check-ins. Those messaging check-ins are led by Cohen on, quote, rapid response days. The creators also have to attend at least 2 Chorus newsroom events per month, which are events Chorus plans, often with lawmakers. Elizabeth Dubois, an assistant professor and university research chair in politics, communication, and technology at the University of Ottawa, who has researched the ways influencers are reshaping the U.S. political system, says that, quote, we are seeing influencers being pulled into these dark campaigns or shadow campaigns where the legal aspect is murky. Sometimes it is actually clear that influencers are being used, for example, evade spending limits, she says. I think that we need to remember that for democracy to thrive, we do need transparency around who is paying for political messages. Yes. If your audience knows where your backing is coming from, they know why you're saying the things that you're saying. It's that simple. If you're getting money from the Democratic Party, you are going to parrot Democrat talking points. If you are independently funded, you are going to just give your opinion on things. You are going to give your ideological worldview. Don Hyder, the chief executive at the Markula Center for Applied Ethics at Santa Clara University, says that the outlined restrictions violate ethical norms. Quote, if the contract for getting money from a particular interest group says you can't disclose it, then it's pretty simple. You can't take that money, he says. We're living in an era where a lot of powerful people have basically taken the rule book and thrown it out the window. Quote, or parentheses. Wilson maintained in a post-publication email that creators are free to work with other groups or take on partnerships outside the Chorus program and say whatever they want as part of that or on their own. However, what I believe he's talking about in this parenthetical is that I'm Zach Cronin, and today's episode is brought to you by whoever the fuck, is sponsored by whatever the fuck. You disclose your financiers. Don't worry. I don't plan on taking money from anybody to fund this broadcast unless it's fucking Calvin Klein because they're sending me underwear or something like that. Keith Edwards, a Democratic content creator who has skyrocketed to fame on YouTube since starting his channel last year, was not invited to be part of the program, but believes that the way it was structured seemed quote-unquote predatory. He says that he would never agree to take part in a program that was run in secret or wouldn't allow him to disclose funding. I agree. You don't have to worry about me signing on with Chorus or with the 1630 fund because I don't want my opinion to be tainted. I also don't really feel like any of these groups would ever reach out to me because I'm very clearly at odds with the Democratic Party, which I guess is which I guess is one of the good things about being a progressive political commentator is that the Democratic Party already fucking hates you and they don't think that you're going to work with them anyway, so they're not going to waste your time. So they're not going to waste their time. Quote, what I don't understand is why wouldn't you just donate to creators directly who have already built something and just need to put gasoline on the fire, says Edwards. Democrats at least understand that the internet exists now, so that's good, but they still think influencers are just there to do terrible direct to camera interviews that no one watches rather than just treating us like another form of media. There are progressive content creators who do better numbers than fucking CNN. Sam Piker had 300,000 people watching him on election day. Kyle Kalinske has close to 2 million subscribers on YouTube and probably gets hundreds of millions of views a month. Maybe not hundreds, probably tens of millions of views per month. The idea that these people are not influential is silly. They could be infinitely more influential if the Democratic Party utilized them properly. The influencers offered the funding were given just days to sign the contract, which is essentially presented and on a take it or leave it basis. At least one cohort was specifically told they could not have their lawyers redline it. In the group chat formed to discuss contract negotiations, some creators discussed a clause prohibiting the disparagement of other creators. Not being able to criticize anyone else affiliated with Chorus felt restrictive to some, according to text messages posted by the chat. That's another healthy aspect of discourse. If there is someone who I like that I disagree with on a certain subject, I want to be able to discuss that freely. Eventually, the creators in the group chat agreed to drop the issues they had. Quote, I don't think Chorus is out to screw us. Orland, a creator who was offered $8,000 per month, said in a group chat. Some influencers for Chorus Creator Incubator Program were offered as little as $250 a month. Holy shit. According to one creator who declined to accept the deal, while others were offered membership into the quote-unquote amplifier cohort, which provides up to $8,000 a month. The 1630 Fund has emerged as a powerful funder in democratic spaces in recent years. Its website notes that issues supported by the organization include economic equity, affordable healthcare, climate solutions, racial justice, voter access, and other essential social change goals. The organization was founded in 2009 as a liberal response to conservative dark money groups and organizations like the Koch Network, and under Trump, it has soared. These organizations can write that they advocate for these things, but ultimately, and in all likelihood, they don't. The reason they don't is because if you are a dark money nonprofit, you are most likely funded by rich assholes. Rich assholes don't want any of this shit. What would make that much more plausible is if they were funded entirely through small dollar donations, because people who give $2, $3, $5, $10 to an organization or to a political candidate would actually benefit from stuff like this. In 2018, the 1630 Fund provided $141 million to more than 100 left-leaning causes in order to bolster Democratic support during the midterms, according to a tax filing obtained by Politico. In 2020, the fund distributed more than $400 million, according to public tax filings, which Politico said was used in, quote, efforts to unseat then-President Donald Trump and Republican Senate majority. In 2022, the 1630 Fund spent $196 million backing state ballot measures on abortion rights heading into the midterm, according to NBC. Just 4 donors accounted to close to 2/3 of the fund's revenue in 2023, according to its tax filings. The largest donor gave the group $50 million, with others donating $31 million, $21 million, and $13.6 million. And you mean to tell me someone with $50 million to throw at a nonprofit is going to be behind taxing themselves more? How fucking stupid does the Democratic Party think we are? The 1630 Fund, which is now required to disclose its contributors, has for years been a major funding source for liberal and progressive causes and groups, including those that spend in elections, says Walker Davis, a research director for the open government group Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. Quote, though their recent tax return indicate that they have pulled back from the eye-popping sums they raised and spent in 2020, the organization is still one of the top spending politically oriented nonprofits in the country. Chorus, which is described by contracts reviewed by Wired as a, quote, project of the 1630 Fund that handles operations for the Creator Program, launched in November 2024 with ties to Good Influence, a for-profit influencer marketing agency aimed at helping content creators connect with social good campaigns. Good Influence was founded in October 2020 by Stuart Perlmutter, the former communications director for Representative John Yarmouth of Kentucky. Seeing an opportunity after Kamala Harris's loss last November, Perlmutter co-founded Chorus with Democratic influencer Brian Tyler Cohen, who has over 4.6 million YouTube subscribers and leads messaging check-ins for the creator cohort on, quote, rapid response days. According to records reviewed by Wired, Chorus claims that its initial creator cohort has a collective audience of more than 40 million followers with more than 100 million weekly viewers, and that the organization has hundreds of creators signed up and ready to amplify messaging. Quote, I've spent most of my career researching right-wing media and sounding the alarms about the collapse of our old information environment. Ellie Langford, the director of programming at Chorus, said on a Zoom call with dozens of creators in June, our political systems haven't been able to figure out a real solution, and I've been really excited to see you all treading the path forward. I deeply, deeply believe that the work y'all are doing is what's going to make the difference in supporting and, frankly, resuscitating our democracy. Again, my point of contention with this is you can't resuscitate democracy by hyperfixating on liberal issues. The reason why our democracy is in jeopardy is because people are fed up with the economic system and they are going to far right and fascist candidates because they lie about fixing the system. The Democratic Party doesn't even lie about wanting to fix the system. They think that the system is fine. Kamala Harris is like, oh, you want universal free childcare and universal health care? What if I gave you more loans for small businesses? No one wants that shit, man. The average American does not give a fuck about small business loans when the cost of living is skyrocketing. They don't give a fuck about the small business loans when going to college is prohibitively expensive and they can't afford to send their child to a daycare because that is also prohibitively expensive. Liberalism, modern liberalism as we know it right now in the neoliberal era is totally content to allow capitalism to persist even though it is leading us directly into fascism. It is also for that reason why the Democratic Party is so against aligning themselves with the Progressive Caucus, because the Progressive Caucus is a threat to capitalism. Therefore, the Progressive Caucus is a threat to neoliberalism. Already, creators in the program are creating good content together. In a weekly series titled Good News in Politics, 6 creators in the program shared a collaborative video running through political wins. Follow these creators bringing you hope instead of doom scrolling. And then they posted these 6 creators. While some creators have been eager to work with Chorus, others distrust the organization. This spring, Chorus faced a wave of backlash from prominent content creators whose images were included in the firm's fundraising decks without their permission. Quote, I was included on some of Chorus's decks like We Have Access to V, when they did not, said V. Spehar, a liberal content creator with just over 3.5 million followers on TikTok. Following the publication of this article, Wilson said that, quote, there is no record of V being included in any Chorus materials, nor being named as any part of the effort. The faces of several well-known influencers were featured prominently on the Chorus website beneath the giant donate button. However, users who clicked the button were taken to a fundraising page for Chorus instead of anywhere their tax dollars would go directly to the creators funded. Progressive YouTuber and former Media Matters staffer Kat Abu Ghazaleh, who's running for Congress in Illinois, was pictured on Chorus's website and included in fundraising decks without her consent. She asked that her images and name be removed and no longer used for fundraising purposes. Spehar and other content creators have accused Chorus of attempting to establish themselves as a gatekeeper to Democratic political leaders. Quote, what we need is for people to invest in independent media, and that doesn't necessarily mean investing in a consulting group that is going to become a middleman for independent media. Several influencers who doggedly defended Chorus throughout the controversy, including Elizabeth Booker Houston, a Democratic comedian and content creator on Instagram, and Ali O'Brien, a progressive creator with more than 600,000 followers on TikTok, were involved in membership talks for the highest paid tier in Chorus's new incubator program. Houston did not respond for comment. O'Brien declined to comment. Still, some creators heard about the 1630 Fund and Chorus funding initiative and applied to join. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because we're almost done. It's okay. So I'm still going to skip ahead a little bit. It's fine. The structure of the program highlights the vast differences between how Democrats and Republicans attempt to amass influences online. Republicans have spent decades building up a powerful independent media ecosystem though the right wing influencer world is far from transparent. In 2024, a federal indictment alleged that the Russian state-sponsored Russia this the oh my god, holy shit. In September 24, a federal indictment alleged that the Russian state-sponsored network RT was covertly providing millions in funding to Tenet Media, a company working with major right-wing influencers including Benny Johnson, Tim Pool, Dave Rubin, and Lawrence Southern. In 2024, the National Republican Congressional Committee spent nearly $500,000 on work with Creator Grid, an influencer marketing campaign whose website says it, quote, connects Republican candidates with the internet's most powerful conservative influencers, according to analysis of the campaign finance filings from the Washington Post. Just getting back to this debacle with Tenet Media, Democrats, liberals, progressives, the entire left wing of the political spectrum clowned on people like Tim Fool and Benny Johnson, rightfully, for taking money from a foreign government. And the Democratic Party is basically just doing the diet version of that. And they don't see any issue with it. None whatsoever. They don't see an issue with it because it's not Russia doing it. It's us doing it. No, the issue is that you're getting money from an undisclosed source. And you're not willing to tell your audience where your money is coming from. That money directly influences your commentary. You have to disclose that. Stephen Buckley, a digital media sociologist at City St. George's University of London, says that these sorts of programs have been, quote, happening in the right wing for ages, but Heider said that the structure of the 1630 fund raises the question, is it ethical to match the tactics of your opponents? No, it is not. The Democrats appear to have no counter to this system. Democrats missed the next generation of media, says Brandon Gahan? I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm sorry. Co-founder of influencer marketing agency Creator Authority. Historically, they owned Hollywood, but this next generation of influence is digital, and they've miscalculated that. I don't think they feel comfortable in areas where they lack control. The Democratic Party is fucking stupid. They continually listen to the fucking consulting class, which is why instead of helping to build grassroots progressive movement, they're partnering with fucking liberal content creators to push forward an agenda of nothingness. If the Democrats adopted an economic populist agenda similar to that of Bernie Sanders or FDR, they would put up fucking LeBron numbers. They would look like 2013 LeBron when it came to midterm elections, local elections, general elections. If they ran on universal child care, universal health care, paid family leave, a higher minimum wage, they would smoke the Republicans because the Republicans have no counter messaging. When presented with $15 minimum wage, the Republican talking point is, no, there should actually be no minimum wage so that we can charge you as little as we want. When presented with full access to abortion, where the only two parties involved are the woman and her doctor, the Republican Party is like, the best we can do is kill you if you get an abortion, is charge you for manslaughter or homicide if you get an abortion. The abortion issue is, it stays at the forefront of my mind because there is tangible data to back this up. In every state where there was a pro-choice ballot measure, that ballot measure was voted in favor of. The residents of Kansas, New York, Florida, all wanted to maintain their bodily autonomy. They all wanted for women to maintain their bodily autonomy. Kansas is as red as New York is blue, and yet the voters reached the same conclusion because the alternative is fucking disastrous. If the Democratic Party is serious about winning elections, which I don't know if they are or not, to be honest, they will embrace the Progressive Caucus.